This is Maureen Kafkis, the Brain BS coach, here to tell you about the episode today. So this really wasn't going to be on the podcast, but I decided that I thought it would be a really valuable episode for coaches in the industry to listen to and for anybody who's thinking about hiring a coach. It was originally intended to be a conversation amongst coaches about how we feel about the goal of making money being the primary motivation in being an entrepreneur. A lot of interesting things came up on this conversation that I think is valuable for everybody to hear. I mean, let's keep it real here. The coaching industry is getting a really bad rap with these prices that are going up, 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 and people presenting themselves as being capable of providing a result that they're not really capable of giving to the clients who hire them. From the inside out, though, I can tell you there's a lot of really good coaches out there with a lot of integrity that care about both money and service because they want to provide care and coaching and assistance to people, but they also need to make a living. Just like any other industry, there's both good and bad, and everything is offered at different levels of prices. So just because a coach charges a lot of money doesn't mean it's not worth the value. And there's lots of coaches out there that don't charge a lot so that coaching is more accessible to more people. I make a point of making sure that my coaching is accessible to people in at least one free format, such as a podcast here. I want to say that when we're talking about coaching in this particular episode, we're referring more to quote unquote business coaches. There are many really good business coaches in the industry, but there are some people out there that are presenting themselves as business coaches who shouldn't be. I'm just going to put it out there. So listen to this episode. Learn what it takes to hire a coach, what kind of things you should be considering. Listen to this episode if you're a coach so that you can reframe what your primary motivation is in business, and you're going to learn all kinds of other helpful tips about how to do business your way and to show up to your clients and to the world in a really cool and authentic way that only you can offer to the world. So here you go. Sit back, settle in. This is episode number 148 of the Brain BS podcast, and I decided to call it Service versus Making Money in the Coaching Industry. Do you want more out of your life but not exactly sure what that might be? Are you longing for something but can't quite put your finger on what it is? That is the universe speaking to you, and it is time to listen up. I'm your host, Maureen Kafkis, the Brain BS coach. I created the Brain BS podcast to help people define what success means to them and show them how to get it. I help you to let go of fear and doubt and prepare your nervous system for success. I show you how to understand your own energy and to trust yourself to make all the decisions. If you are ready to go inward and stop looking outside yourself for all the answers, this is the podcast for you. Now let's get started. Okay. All right, so the way we're going to, I've never done anything like this before, so it's my first time. So I'm just going to do it the way I want and see what happens. We're just going to experiment a little bit. I am going to, first of all, go through why I'm so passionate about this topic and why I was inspired to respond to the post in the first place. And then kind of bring up the things that I think are important that we should be kind of looking at and stuff. And then you guys can ask any questions. And since there's not that many people, we can even just open up the talking in here instead of using the chat if you want. Okay, does that sound good? Okay. All right. So it's not, and I'm not going to like belabor my points or be here for an hour or so, but I think they're pretty valid points and good ones and something for all of us to think about. So the whole 100K, just in case anybody doesn't know, the whole initiative for the conversation was because somebody with good intentions had posted in the group that they questioned why more coaches didn't make 100K, and they were kind of puzzled by it. And my first reaction, quite honestly, was to get a little pissed off because I was like, well, I know why. Because I have no business background. And I'm doing what all these people are telling me to do, and I'm not achieving the goal. Nothing's working, and I'm not lazy. I'm not just sitting there not taking actions. I'm not frozen in fear. I literally, with the coaches that I worked with, dove 100% in. Gretchen can attest to how I am as a student. I jumped 100% in, and it just wasn't happening. So I'm going to be looking at my notes here so I make sure that I cover everything. But so I realized that then I looked up coaches' salaries. Okay. Nobody in their first year of coaching, on an average, not even in the first year of coaching, an average life coach salary, the highest I got for a year in the United States, which is all I looked up, is $43,000. Okay. So my question is, why are we being made to feel like we're not normal somehow because we're not making this money? And at first I was buying into it hook, line, and sinker because I'm not a businesswoman. I don't have a business background. What do I know? Well, it turns out I know a lot, and so do you guys. But we need to start looking at ourselves for the answers instead of having other people impose goals on us that aren't necessarily ours. So I do believe that the 100K goal was planted with good intentions. So this is all positive and constructive. We're not going to trash the life coach school for coming up with a goal or any of that stuff. I think it was really planted with good intentions, similar to the impossible goal. But I think we lost sight of the fact that we might not make the 100K. Like the impossible goal is that you strive to get that goal, but you don't, it doesn't matter if you get it or not because you become a better person in the process. But that's not working with the 100K goal if you don't have a nervous system to support you taking actions. In fact, it's terrifying and it feels emotionally unsafe to put yourself out there in major ways to try to go big when you don't have a solid belief foundation in yourself at all. And then we feel so bad. And I say we, I don't know if this is everyone's experience. This is mine. And this is what I hear from a lot of people. It's so uncomfortable and painful that you're willing to pay anybody anything to help you get rid of that feeling and to start making the money and to become successful. And you're not choosing who you hire to help you from a place of your higher self or a place that's in your best interest. We're doing it because we feel really shitty and we want to feel better and we want to feel better now. And the sad part to me is we are really trying to do something really good here. We're trying to help other people and we have the best of intentions and we are beating ourselves up in the process. Or though I didn't know if that was a raised hand or you're clapping. Okay. I'm not the best with the Zoom features, but I think I can handle them. So I just think here we are trying to do something so meaningful and we are beating ourselves up way too much. And I'm seeing it everywhere I turn around. And it has become clear to me. I've always sort of been like a cheerleader for the underdogs and stuff and for the people who can't, don't have as big a mouth as me and who aren't willing to speak up. I've always pretty much been willing to speak up in almost any situation where there's a group of people who are depending on me. Not necessarily on my own, but when there's a group of people. And I just feel like we really need to start normalizing that, first of all, making 100K is not the norm. It can take years to make 100K, and that is not a problem. We have to meet ourselves where we are and understand that nothing has gone wrong. This is literally what it looks like to become an entrepreneur. It's not like we've been told. It isn't going to, maybe for a few, but they usually come into it with a major business background or years of corporate, working in corporate, or they're physicians who come with the whole following and stuff. And I'm not saying that there's not outliers and exceptions to that role, but that's the norm. So let me see what else I want to make sure I touch on before we start. Well, and also just the idea that we all think that the answers are outside us for how we do business because we're not business people. But what are business people? They're just people who are doing what they want to do to make money. And there isn't one single right way to do it. We could do it any way we want. And in fact, like in my journey, I started out and I just started doing things on my own. And I did the entrepreneur track, but I didn't look at any of the stuff in there because I was too busy trying to create a business. So I started, and I actually did really good at first. I made like $27,000 in a few months, but it became very obvious to me that my nervous system could not handle it as soon as people started to complain about anything. And as soon as I felt like I did something wrong, all my subconscious and unconscious programming started to come up. And that programming that's inside you is way louder than any conscious thing you can try to do or any thought work. A thought is not gonna drown out your subconscious and unconscious programming. It just doesn't work that way. So I stepped aside, I put it all aside because I'm in a position where I can do that. And not everybody's in that position. But again, I feel like that's why I am driven to speak on this topic, because I am in a position that I don't need to make the money. And I have the luxury of being able to do this and be able to help people and take my time and figure out how to do a deep dive on myself so I could get to the other side of this and then start over. And that's what I'm doing. And so when I hear, and I hear it all the time in different groups, people just like really suffering and thinking that something has gone terribly wrong, and nothing has. It's just like, that is the universe telling you go inward, or whatever you want to call it, energy, intuition, God, if you're a God person, whatever it is. So I just, I want to point that out. And I also want to point out that we all get to define what success is. Success doesn't have to be 100K. It doesn't even have to be anything related to money. It could be, for me, the metrics I use when I wasn't even trying to sell anything and I was preparing myself for selling things was, how am I feeling on a regular basis? How am I feeling every day? And then I started to get businessy and would look at how many podcast downloads I got. You know, how many people am I reaching on the podcast, and it would help that way. So, but never money. Like, I haven't even tried to make money for the last year and a half. But I've seen lots of people who have made a lot of money who are miserable, and it's not sustainable because they haven't done the inside work to get to the point where it can support them. And then what I'm about to say is a little bit more, like, I think only people who have made a lot of money think talking about this is like a sensitive topic, because I don't really understand why it's a sensitive topic. It's a problem for a lot of us coaches. And I don't really see the sensitivity in it. But what I'm about to say could be a little bit sensitive, because I think it's important that we really look at how we're hiring coaches and how they're presenting themselves on social media, and because if we're not in a heightened state of anxiety thinking that we don't have the answers and somebody else knows all of them, then we can really hire people from a solid place and know what we want to do with our business, and not what somebody else is trying to tell us to do with our business. So it totally changes who you hire and how you hire someone when you do it that way. And so this is the most controversial thing I'll say, and it's not that controversial. People who say they're six-figure coaches who made six figures 15 years ago and haven't since then can still say they're six-figure coaches. People who made money 1 year and then didn't for the next 5 can tell you that they made a certain amount of money, and then they present themselves like that in their marketing. So I think it's really important to be aware that everything, I mean, this is like things that we know in our personal life. Like, we see people and pictures on social media and the whole family looks happy, and we know those people, and we know they're not happy. We know what they're like to hang out with at dinner. We forget about the things that we know in our personal life, and we forget it's the same in business. It's all the same. There's things going on that aren't as true as they seem and aren't as clear cut, and people are presenting themselves in ways that are, and I'm not saying that they're doing it with ill intent, or they're like trying to make money. And then the last thing I want to say is, there's a lot of people out there presenting themselves as business coaches, and they're not. And I'm not one. I don't even pretend to be one. I am a build a solid foundation in yourself, get your belief going, emotional support coach for people to do that first before they start doing all the other things, so that we can kind of wise up about who we're hiring and how we're doing things. And then the last thing I want to say is we're all exactly where we're supposed to be. Nothing's gone wrong in our business. And if you're listening to this and you were called to come to this talk and have this conversation, then this is a message from somewhere, to kind of pay attention and really reevaluate how you're doing things and to start doing them your way, and in a way that feels good to you inside your body and not the way that other people are telling you to do it. So I think that was all. I have the list of salaries here, but like I said, the highest one's 43,000. Like how, and my husband, like, can I just say, when I started doing this, my husband was like, I got off the phone after hearing about the 100K and stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to make 100K this year. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, it's possible with thought work. I could do it. And I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. All right, so let's open it up to who has something they want to say. Pete, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll add something. And thanks again for putting this on, because I think that we have to look at things from different perspectives and we have to be realistic about what a business means. And this is something that I've, as an entrepreneur who owned a brick and mortar and as an engineer who left corporate, I think the lessons I learned from those I've applied to my coaching journey. And that's what I've tweaked to not make the same mistakes. I'll use an anecdotal story. When you're looking to start up an oil company and you're going out to get funding to start an oil company, you have a product, you have, materials, you need to get funding to actually kick off your first 10 wells. And every founder of that company usually has to commit about $500,000 of their own money into the business. That $500,000 is to pay your salary for the next 3 years. So on top of foreign investment, on top of getting investors, you're also paying for your own salary to live off of for the next 3 years. That's something that isn't taught to us as coaches, that your first 3 years are going to be negative. If you don't have enough invested to be able to pay your own salary for the next 3 years, you are not in a position to call yourself a business, because you can't free yourself to go do all the things you need to do to build a business, which is advertising, client acquisition, finance, IT. I kind of looked at it like the 5 core attributes of any proper business. I think Corinne always says this, we're inheriting jobbies. They're not really jobs, they're not really hobbies. And we didn't set ourselves up as sophisticated business owners when we jumped into this as a whole. And when I say we, I mean, all of us. We just think 20,000 to life coach school for our certification, maybe another 10,000 for a business coach, and let's roll. And
that's
right?
how I thought. I really thought that just listening to you talk and all this information that you're giving us, I'm like, nope, none of that even entered my mind. I just kind of went with it and thought that I was all excited when I spent my first $8,000 on a coach. I'm like, oh, this is it. Now I'm on my way. And then nothing happened.
Yeah, because it's funny because I just recorded a podcast on this, like the hero's journey, right? Getting that little bit of certification, getting that little bit of knowledge, and getting a few mentors is only the first third of our journey to becoming sophisticated business owners, because that's what we all want to be. And to call ourselves a business, you have to be generating free cash flow. It's easier for us because our overhead's lower, but we don't keep that 3-year negative cash flow mindset in our head. If you want to become a successful business, on average, you need to eat 3 years of losses.
Okay, but wait, I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
That's if you're using money as a metric.
Well, if you're treating this like a business, something that I always relate back to my coaching is my coaching a business yet? And I say, no, it's not a business until I'm spitting out
that's in the traditional sense of a business, right?
Yeah, and that's how I approach it.
Right, but some people are doing it and they're really helping people and they're really putting stuff out there and they're not making any money. And if they want to call it, this is just my opinion, if they want to call it a business, I don't want to get too much into what defines a business and the metrics and stuff, But I really appreciate what you shared there, because another way of looking at it is you guys have probably heard me posting on Heather Plett's book, The Art of Holding Space. So it's also like we are, we're in where we were and where we want to be, and we think we're going to jump through that middle space that she calls the liminal space in a very short period of time. And it's just like, it's really, you know what I think that pisses me off the most about all of it? It's like when my dad used to make us think that maybe we would get to go to the baseball game and then we didn't get to go. Like raising my expectations for something and making me think something's possible that for me was not possible. And no, don't anybody tell me, well, if I just managed my mind better, it would be, because I need to do a lot of reprogramming in my body of just small trauma throughout an entire lifetime. And I was not in a position to put myself out there. But thank you for sharing that, Pete. That was great. And I love your businessy mind. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nidhi. I'm really glad to be having this conversation. Already from what Maureen and Pete have just shared, I feel kind of a relief in feeling that a year after getting my certification, the the minimal, if any, revenue I can call it in my business is not in some way late. I'm not behind the curve. I'm not doing, I should have been further along by now. I think the thing that's probably hit home the hardest to me, and I was saying before everybody came on to Maureen, that this is the timing of this conversation is really pivotal for me, where I am in my journey, coaching journey and business journey. In that the thing that Maureen said in her introduction about themselves, to our insecurities, and to that we'll pay any amount of money to anyone to get away from that discomfort. I mean, for me, I recently had a very negative experience, and I really feel sort of validated that I'm not alone in how I got to that point, and that this is a path that is kind of almost, far from setting us up for success. We're kind of set up for this path to have very unreasonable, very high expectations set up for us in the first 12, 18, 24, 36 months, whatever it may be. And this carrot dangled in front of us. Oh, you can make 10K in 90 days. And it's just completely unrealistic. And for me to hear Maureen say that that our nervous system has to handle these complaints. I was one of those people. I was a client that complained. Doing it, I couldn't help but think, what would I do if this was one of my clients? And this really hits home to me, and it really makes me reset my expectations to, I don't want to make more than 100. I would be, I mean, if I make 100K, great, but if I don't, also great. And that I only want to be able to service 2 or 3 clients at any given time. And that's completely way back from, me being able to make 100K. And I would be more than happy at this point to call myself a business that was servicing 2 to 3 clients a month. I would feel like I have arrived, just based on our initial discussion today. I really think that that's an important kind of reset for me to make of my expectations. So thank you. I really appreciate being here.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. But also, and I want to point out that for some people, 100K is possible, right? So like those people, more power to you, go for it. And if you have like the ability to jump right in there and do that. But I mean, nobody could have jumped in there more than I did. I'm not kidding you. It was ridiculous. It was like 12, 14-hour days, getting my website, doing my podcast, doing all the stuff. And it didn't, well, it worked at first because it was fun, and then I got completely burnt out. And I was just like, oh my God. But I knew I wasn't going to give up. So I was like in this place of, what do I do? And so I just went inward. My intuition just told me to go inward. Who
And
else? Oh, go ahead.
Maureen, I agree with you. I think that, you know, you had, like I said, you have this carrot dangled in front of you. And I think that if when you turn inward and you say, okay, what value can I provide? And you put that value out there, that's great. You're not going to know what's coming back to you. And I think us being told that you're going to get 100K coming back to you, I think that might be part of the disconnect of what we think is going to happen, and we don't actually know what's going to happen. You know, it's all unknown. Each of our journeys is unknown, and I think this is very like I said, for me, a very timely conversation. Like I said, I've just been through a experience, and the thing that kept coming up for me during that time was, I would hate for one of my clients to have the experience that I had, and you know, in a high ticket program that really just played to my insecurity and my expectation that I wasn't making enough money at this point in my business. And if I didn't take this, you know, this high ticket offer, that I wasn't going to get to where I wanted to go. And I wasn't going to do it in the time that I was supposed to do it in.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably will. Don't get me wrong. I'm perfectly capable of making the money, but now I don't have the expectation that I should have done it by now, or do it by a certain time.
And it's really valuable to look at the energy that you had when you decided to sign up for that program. Like, when you think that the coach is the answer, that's a problem. You know, they're there to guide you. This is my opinion, of course. They're there to guide you. When you do the work and you do the internal work and you get to a place where you know that you get to do it your way and it can be fun, then you kind of lead the show. You're not listening to somebody else. What did you say?
Can I just add one thing? I just talked to a guy who's trying to sell me his program. And I told him, I know you, I like you, but I don't trust your program for what you're trying to sell it to me for. Because my experience is the ROI falls on me to execute. So I'm not paying you a high ticket offer on me to execute. Where's your skin in the game?
Yeah, I like that, Pete.
And I'm now taking that approach with how I go out and market and network with people, right? We keep going, because I think this is also disingenuous when we go and we tell them the high ticket offer, right? If I'm going to go as a business consultant into an office and I'm going to charge them $25,000 for my services, I'm going to have to set up KPIs and metrics and everything, and I'm going to have to show an ROI. And that's what even today, there's another post saying, like, how do we show the tangible value of what we coach? Yeah, that's the challenge. If we want to consider ourselves high ticket coaches and charging these, the high dollar amounts, somebody has to swallow hard on that. And if you can't quantify the result and take some ownership of it, you can't just put it back on them and say it was your mindset.
Yeah, go ahead. Angeline, is that how I say your name?
Angeline, yeah. So going from that, there's a couple things going through my mind. First of all, there's your nervous system and how much you can charge. And if you think of yourself as a brand new coach, being told, well, you need to sell high ticket offers, you need to sell, $10,000 programs or whatever, you may not be at a place where you really feel like, yeah, I actually can deliver $10,000 worth of value to this client right now based on where I am. And so you need to have your pricing set at a place where your nervous system can handle your pricing. The other part of that is, I also believe that coaching should be accessible and not just group coaching. There's lots of group coachings. It's like $50 a month or this or that. But if we are making coaching so inaccessible for the people who need it, what are we doing? That, like, I'm wealthy enough, like, we make it, we pay our bills, but we don't have like lots of money. But does that mean I don't deserve to receive coaching? Like, what about other people who are like, those are the people who need it. And if we're selling thousands of dollar programs, it eliminates like 90% of people from even being able to have access to coaching. And I think that's a really important piece to say, balancing those two between I need to charge what I need to charge to pay my bills, to fulfill my financial obligations, but also not charge so much. And this idea of like just charge more and charge more and more and more and more, I don't really like the idea behind that, because it's extractive from the clients. And it's fine if other people feel like that's their way of doing it. I'm not judging other people's methods, but for me, that doesn't feel right to just charge more because I can. And so anyway, just understanding and going inward, like you said, to decide where is the balance point for me on how much I charge, how much I need to earn in order to pay my bills or whatever, and then how much that I feel like this is really worth to somebody, and how do I make it accessible to people who really need the help with what it is that I'm doing.
I love it so much that you brought this up, because it was on my list and I overlooked it. Okay, so I'm also a really big fan of accessibility and getting people what they need. I'm also really a fan of transparency. And I was thinking about this today. Like if you went to a car lot, I don't think anyone's used this analogy. I'd give them credit if they did, but I don't think they did. If you go, like we've heard the analogy that when you go to buy a car, you could get a Lamborghini or you could get a Kia or all that or whatever. But what about like when you're the person going into the place and the salesperson is trying to make a sale? And they want to know, like, are they going to sit there when they know you're really there for a Kia? Are they going to sit there and try to get you to overcome your objection and pay for a Lamborghini? No, because you're not. So that you brought up something too. When you want to make referrals or you want to hire a coach or something, like I have people asking me about coaching. 2 people in the last 2 days that asked me about coaching and how much I charge. And I don't really do one-on-one coaching, but I'm realizing where my place is in all this, right? So I'm like, tell me how much you want to spend. That's how it should work. It shouldn't work on how much is the coach charging and trying to figure out and go, like, if somebody's stressed out and anxious in a really bad place, do they really want to go meet this high ticket coach and get through the session to find out that they can't afford them? Like, honestly, that can be a little devastating if you're already in a bad place to begin with. Why set people up for that? I just put a referral in the posse for my friend. I was very specific about what he wants, how long he's willing to coach for, the amount of money he's willing to spend, that they have to be liberal and because he's gay and all the things. And I actually think that when you hire anybody or you present yourself to anybody, you should be just really clear and transparent. And in terms of the pricing, I totally believe that it does have to feel good in your body. And you know what? If nobody put that 100K goal in my head, I would have never tried. I had a coach that told me to double my prices, cut back on the time that I spent with the people, and not give them the handouts that I did at the end of it. And I listened to her and I lost like 4 clients. And like one of them was a friend who still thinks poorly of me, but that's her own work that she has to do. But I knew when I did it that it was wrong, but I was like, okay, if that's how I'm going to make money, it's like I hadn't done the work yet to know that somebody else can't tell you how much to charge. They can't tell you what your offer should be like. They can't tell you anything. Like it really is an inside job. And if you're doing something because someone else told you to do it, it's just not going to work. I did Amy Porterfield's email course. Literally, I'm nothing like Amy Porter. Like she's beautiful and polished and all her stationery. You know, I have my yellow legal pads here and stuff. Guess what? It didn't work. You know, you just have to really be true to yourself and find your own path. And I think if we don't have the pressure on us to make 100K, we can take our time with it. And also, this is another thing that drives me crazy is when we're told that we can't make a certain amount of money until we spend it. Because I believe that one too. I believe that the energy world is keeping tabs on me and I have to pay $8,000 for that person to make $8,000 or whatever. That's all brain BS too.
Can I add something in there that I've heard on a couple of LCS type coaching sessions about the whole, if you want to acquire clients, you must advertise. And I'm just going to play devil's advocate that I agree with that. If you want an influx of clients, if we owned a dental practice before, if we wanted patients, we had to go and advertise, and we did get patients, and they will get you to your goal, but you're not building the business that you want. You're going to be learning on the fly, and you're going to be screwing up a lot and all that. And I don't think a lot of people are prepared for that. So, if you're going to make 100K, you'll be prepared to spend 100K probably on ads. And who's ready to do that?
I didn't have to spend any money to make my first 27K. I didn't.
No, but I'm saying when you're taught to go to that 100K,
and
you're sitting there being coached by Brooke, and she's telling you, well, are you advertising? Are you putting Facebook ads in? And I think that's a really dangerous place to teach young coaches or new coaches that are new to the business, because you don't know your messaging. Facebook ads are an algorithm, and they're very complicated. And there has to be a pain point where you learn what the right message is for your people. Yeah. They teach all of that and then go spend $100,000 in Facebook ads, which I think is also very irresponsible off the bat, because you hire marketing companies. If I was an agency, I would hire an agency to run my ads, somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because oh my God, I did the whole funnel. I don't even use it. It's sitting there in no man's land. I haven't used it for like a year and a half. And I spent money to have somebody help me do that funnel and go through the whole sequence. But I mean, and part of that is the journey, right? But I think what I'm trying to do is help people so that they don't have to go through everything that I went through, and that they can curtail the suffering earlier on, and kind of reframe how they're looking at things. Wait, does anybody else want it? Susan, do you have anything, or Gretchen or Yvette?
Yeah, I can add in. Okay. Two different things that I wanted to add in. So as far as like the money part of it, I never bought into like what other people were telling me what I needed to make or what I could make. I came up with the 3 numbers that were important to me. And the first one was to break even. Because I didn't go into business just to get into a ton of debt. So I did eventually go for the certification, even though I had been in self-coaching scholars for like 3 years. So I felt like I knew a lot of the information. And I had been a business coach for more than 10 years in biotech. And I was utilizing all of the mindset stuff, bringing that in with all the business stuff. But I was like, I had my other reasons for why I wanted to do the certification. And it was more to be part of the community that it opened me up to. I didn't think, okay, if I do this, I'm going to go and make $1 million. It's like, no, I want to open myself up to the community of people that want to talk about this kind of stuff, because with the model, I was able to eliminate my depression that I've had since I was 19. And I was like, whoa, okay. But it's like a very structured process to do. So I was like, yeah. So anyway, the number part, break even was my first thing. So I had already decided high ticket offers were not my thing. Like, no, there are plenty of brilliant people out there that have prices that are more along the lines of what I want to pay, because I want to break even. I actually want to have a profitable business. So then my next one was my minimum math number of, okay, well, if I want to have my own business generating my own income, how much income do I want to live on? Like, what is the minimum where it's like, okay, yeah, I can do this and not go out and look for a job, because I have been the breadwinner in my family of 7 for for the longest time. And so now my husband is making some money too, so he can contribute, but it's always been on me. So I never had a choice to not make money, unfortunately. Like, that would have been nice. So I had to figure out, well, what's the minimum? And so I learned how to decrease my financial footprint, so I didn't have to make as much money as I was used to making when I worked in corporate. And so then it was like, okay, well, here's my minimum. Now, how would I go about making that? And I'm also a fan of making everything accessible for people. So I don't, people are out there struggling, like I want to help them. And so finding that sweet point of how can I make my minimum math number and make it accessible to people. And then the third number is bold goal. So it's like, okay, once I get to the minimum, now what's the bold that I'd want to go for? And I can choose that number to be anything I want it to be. And I can choose what I want to do with that extra money that I make. And some of it, now I'm going to be hiring a VA to fully do my podcast for me. I mean, I come up with the content, but somebody else can. And now she's going to have income to take care of her family. And I'm like, okay, I like those reasons. That feels really good. So break even, minimum math number, bold goal. And I just went with that. But yeah, even having a very strong business background for a long time, I wasn't able to come out and make a ton of money my first year. And I've been in business for 4 years now. I have crossed over the 100K mark, but I had so many obstacles that I had to get through. And so one of the hardest ones was asking people to actually pay me. So I was used to working as an exempt employee where they paid me a certain amount and I work as much as I want to, which I like to help people. So I'd always work more than what was required of me. So then to go out into the real world on my own, nobody's giving me a paycheck, I'm earning it. That also means that I need to ask people to pay me, but it went against me and all of my belief systems because I just want to help people. So I had to do a lot of work on allowing people to pay me because I'd even have people ask if they could pay me and I'd tell them no. So that was some of my work. I also wanted to have friends. And so I started to see this as a way of making friends as opposed to clients. And so it's like I had to work through that too, because if it's a business, it's really supposed to be a business. And that if you're making friends, like that's the benefit, but it shouldn't be like your main focus because then it gets everything really cloudy. And one of my big things, and I actually hired a grief coach to help me with this, was I had a hard time when clients were done. Like we'd get them their results and they were done. And I didn't want them to go because I formed an attachment with all of them, right? It's like this good relationship. And so I'd be heartbroken and just want to go cry in bed. And it's like, I should be celebrating like they got their result and we completed the whole thing. Instead, I'm crying like we just broke up or something. So I had to go and spend some time with a grief coach. And that was the first time that I invested a lot of money in a one-on-one coach. But I was like, I need grief coaching to help me to be able to like do transactional kind of work. And who knew that was going to come up? I didn't know that was going to be it. And then
can I just say though, that you hiring a grief coach is the perfect example of how you have to address personal things for your business. The two are totally entwined. So you can't have all kinds of stuff going on in your personal life. So making a wise investment in a coach that's actually helping you with something like that is different than coming from a desperate place and trying to get a business coach, to tell you
actually
what to do.
The very first one-on-one coach that I hired, he is a health coach, a physical health coach, and he mainly sells like these platform things that like shake your feet and it's supposed to do stuff for you. I don't even know. I didn't buy that. He was doing Facebook Lives and he was driving around his disabled sister-in-law and he's just full of energy and he was singing a Kiss song or something. And I was like really drawn into his energy. So I kept watching a lot of his videos because the first couple of years, like it was a struggle, and already having depression and anxiety in my background, it was like a lot of triggers were happening. And I was like, I just need someone that has higher energy than me to be there, to be willing to talk with me about just stuff. And so I reached out to him and I was like, can I hire you as my coach? But I'm not necessarily interested in like all the physical stuff. I just want your energy around me because I need that energy boost. And it was a wonderful investment. wonderful investment. And
Yeah,
he helped me
energy
so
is
much.
always the good way to go, right? Like that's
Oh,
what
yeah.
mine is all about, the energy. But you brought up something else too that I think is important, and this goes with what Andalyn said. So this is where I also got tripped up, that the life coach school makes it sound like you have money issues if you're not primarily motivated by money. And I have never in my entire life been primarily motivated by money. So trying to make money my goal was a big mistake at the beginning for me. So I ended up, because and in human design, I have a cross of service. So when I learned my human design, I was like, oh my God, this totally makes sense now. Why the whole, and I did all the money programs and scholars. I read all the money books. I did all of it. And I actually believe I'm going to start making money now. But back then, there was no way. And I thought I had money issues and that it was, but it wasn't. It was just that wasn't the metric to get me started in my journey. I had to find internal abundance first for the money to come. So and then there was something else too that you brought up, Gretchen, that made me think too, when we're hiring coaches, is that I'm not, and Gretchen is definitely not one of these people because I worked with her, but some coaches, and I'm just going to put this out there because it's the truth, they kind of keep you dependent on them. And this is my opinion in groups I've been in, they pace your ability to achieve your goals so that you'll sign up with them again. I'm just putting that out there. That one's kind of controversial. I guess it's really, but it's true. It's true. And for me as an occupational therapist with my background, I like to promote independence. And I want people to go do their thing then. And if they want to come back to me, they can. But I just think that we have to be very, very careful about how we're doing all of it. Nidhi, did you want to say something?
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Gretchen, she found a coach that she knew exactly what she wanted from that coach. And I think what ends up happening to a lot of us as we come out of the certification program is that we're bombarded with all of this marketing from all of these coaches that solve all of these problems. We're so inexperienced, both in business and in coaching. We don't know what problem we want to solve. And I feel like we get so sucked in to whatever is in front of us, whatever is the brightest, shiniest object, and we go towards that. And I really think that in the past year, I really avoided it for the first 6-12 months. And then I just got sucked into this program recently. And I just really think it's just, we have to know what problem we want solved by that coach, by any coach we want to hire. And until we can until we can elaborate what that problem is, we shouldn't be hiring anybody. You know, whether they're high ticket or accessible or any other kind. Know what problem you want solved. Really have no business trying to find a coach for yourself and doing it because everybody's there, or everybody's, you know, doing whatever program, Amy Porterfield or whatever. Fine, consume all of their free stuff. That's fine. But if you don't know what problem it is that you want solved, then you shouldn't be hiring anybody. And I really appreciate whoever that was that brought that up. I think Gretchen. And yeah, I really think that it avoids a lot of pitfalls because we're so inexperienced. We don't know what we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what problem we want solved. And we can't even articulate it or elaborate it yet until you've tried email marketing and you've failed at it, or you've tried Facebook ads and you've failed at it. You don't know what you should ask for in that type of coach.
Yeah, it's really, when you put it that way, and this kind of, I'm just going to put it out there. I kind of feel like we're prey.
Yes.
Right? If you got these predatory coaches, and I'm not saying that they even know they're predators. I think they're just like trying to make that 100K goal too. And they're trying to make the money, but then we're all sitting there like we're like these weak little birds. And like you know, they're coming after us, and it's like, and we don't, I listened to everybody. I had no idea that I could do business differently and do it. Yeah, we are the funnel. Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, and I do think we have to get really specific, because I just started working with someone doing breath work, And because of all the conversations that have been taking place lately, I said specifically, what results can you guarantee me by doing this program? And I've never done that before with a coach, and I've never gotten, results. Well, other than with Gretchen, she was a process coach for me and helping me with that stuff. But she would offer all kinds of things, and I'd be like, nah, I'm not doing that. Nah, that doesn't feel good. No, didn't I? Like, I just visually stimulated with all the charts and all that. I'm like, no, I appreciate that, but I'm not going to do that. So now, like, when you get to a point where you can trust yourself, make all the decisions in your personal life and your business life, that's when it gets fun. That's when you can respond to a coach in the posse and question them on the 100K goal. And then when you're not permitted to have the conversation in the posse anymore, you take it on the road and you just do it. And you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And it's like, you just go, because I have a nervous system that can do that now. I couldn't before. And it really is, it's the nervous system. And it's also, knowing what's going on in your head. It's the mind-body connection. It's not just thought work that can make it possible for you to be successful.
Yeah. And I would add that the coaches that have made money, I think they get disconnected from their own nervous system. And that's how they become predators and don't even realize it. And that's how, when they've made, 50K, 75K, and then 100K, they're hooked. And their nervous system is expecting another hit of dopamine at 125K and 150K after that. And I think that they don't even realize that they've become predators for us. And
well, they're just like us. They're just like us, thinking we want that
slippery slope.
Yeah. So they're like us, but they're further along. But here's the thing. The universe blessed them with that 75,000 or that 100,000 because they have different lessons to learn in life than us. We have to learn internal abundance first and trust ourselves to make decisions and do things authentically. They've got their own lessons. So don't think that things are going great for them, because we all experience the same exact emotions, no matter how much money we have. It's just a different circumstance that causes it. Yeah. And so I think the whole coaches being predators is kind of funny, but I'm also a little nervous about how it will be received, but I'm not that nervous. I'm glad we're having the conversation and putting it out there. Pete, before I go to you, can I see, Susan, do you have something that you want to share?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to share. So a little bit about my journey from diving into health coaching and thinking that I would become a health coach, then realizing that I needed to go on my own personal journey before I could do that, although I did it in the midst of everything, and then getting into LCS and doing that certification, one for the community, but also to grow my business. Like, I had that story, well, if you just do this next thing, that's going to be amazing. And I've done, B school, and I did another program, and it was just like, just keep going and get that next coach. And one of the pitfalls that I will never do again is when I invested in a coach and a program that I was paying for well beyond when the actual time ran out with that person because of the cost of it. So I've sworn to myself I will never do that again. But one of the things that I needed to do was to stop listening to everybody outside of myself, come back into myself, what is true for me. And so I literally shut down email funnels that I was in, even on Facebook or Instagram, just stopping following certain people, just to quieten things for myself, quieten my nervous system, because I did get to that burnout stage, to the point that this year I've shut down my coaching. I had done Stu McLaren's membership, but I'd only done the free component of it. I'd set up a membership off that. I ran that for nearly 3 years and then went, I really don't know that this is the right way forward for me at this point in time. So I shut all of that down this year, which had one-on-one coaching linked to it. And I asked my clients just to reconsider what they were actually needing at that time, which meant some clients dropped off. As to where I go next, well, a lot of it's around writing for me, and actually sitting my ass down to write different books and things like that, because that's what's sort of lighting me up. Well, that is what's lighting me up. But trusting myself to do things differently, and allowing whatever that next growth path to come is really important. But it all is internal work, and it's constant. It's not negative, but it's challenging. It's challenging to do things differently. And so it's great to have this sort of conversation to spark that and to go, you know, we can do things differently. We don't have to follow the path that's been set for us, and therefore be authentic to who we are. So that's kind of just a little bit about me and where I've, you know, sort of gone on my journey. It's been up and down. Gretchen's been there for a lot of it, which has been fun. And yeah, I just encourage everybody to redefine what success means for you. And I think it was an LCS coach who just asked me that question, and I had this, you know, grandiose idea of what success would be, you know, the $1 million, you know, a year and all of that sort of stuff. And that's not bad. I'm not saying that may come, but it's not my priority. So when I sat down to think about what do I really need? Oh, is that it? Okay, let's work towards that. Like, that's easy. Do you know what I mean? So it just changes the way that I was thinking about it. So it was good.
Yeah, she's my soul sister. So we talk all the time about this kind of stuff. You brought up something though. So I call my approach to business, which I didn't even know was possible a couple of years ago, a practical one. I use human design, universal law. I use things that I never dreamt you could use in business. And I don't believe that I have to advertise because I'm a projector. So I'm like a lighthouse that's lit up. And then people come and find me when they need me. I'm not for everybody, but the people I'm for find me. So, and I believe that. And I really believe that everything happens for a reason. I trust the process. And so I don't get caught up in the stuff that I first learned about business. I don't even think about marketing. For me is playing pickleball and just socializing and creating relationships with people. And really a big part of it is having people on my podcast. I love to have people on the podcast and talk about their experiences. And anybody here who wants to come on and talk about this 100K thing, I think we need to get some conversations going about this. I think it's really valuable. I also want to offer something else that I think is helpful during the interim of when you're trying to figure out how you want to do things. I had 2 people over the last 2 years while I was doing this deep dive on myself that I did free coaching on. They really helped me and kept me inspired to be a coach. Like they really, like having them and using them with the things that I was learning in all the places on myself. And then I would apply what I learned with them. So if anybody tells you too that it's bad to do free coaching, I think that's brain BS too. I think you know if it's good or bad. If you're doing it because you're afraid to ask for money and it feels yucky inside, then you know that that's your brain BS leading the way. But if you want to do it because it inspires you and you really want to help that person, then there's nothing wrong with doing that. It doesn't mean you have money issues. But you will know by the way it feels in your body if you have money issues or not, or it's always about your intent and your energy behind it. What about Yvette? Do you have anything that you don't have to, but I just want to give you the opportunity if you want to say anything.
Sure. Well, hello everyone. I'm Yvette Riddle. I am a freelance graphic designer and as well as a coach. So that was my first career, moving into the coaching space. Now, what I want to offer about the 100K goal is that has always been a goal for me for long before I even knew of LCS. And I never made it. I worked for myself. I didn't advertise. I didn't market. It was all done relationship wise. And the closest I got to 100K was 92. And back to what Pete had mentioned about the 3 years, when I first started freelancing, and I didn't even consider it a business. I considered it, I'm a solopreneur. I'm working for myself. So when I get into LCS, I'm like, business? Well, yeah, I guess I have a business, but it was this weird feeling, right? And but back then when I had a few close friends that were also self-employed freelancers, they all said the same thing, that it's going to take time. And the figure that was given to me was 5 years. It's going to take about 5 years. And also like what Pete said, that it helps to have capital. I didn't have any. I had 0. I had a 401k. But I kind of felt like I had to freelance because I was, the jobs were scarce. The company was going, they got bought out and I was losing my job. I ended up being the last creative left out of 30. which is a testament in and of itself that I could do so many different things. But instead of it taking me 5 years, it took me 3, and I did have to pull out my 401k. I had nobody, no second income, no savings, no trust fund, no nothing, did it all on my own. And was successful at it in that I ended up making more money as a freelancer than I did employed. And not only that, back then I was also involved in it was a spiritual group that was basically it's kind of like the model in a way. You create your life with your belief system. So we used energy work, we used meditation and stuff like that. So I had years, decades of that helping me along. By the time LCS came along, I was like, oh, hey, I should be able to pop right over here and it'll be easy peasy. It is not. I literally started over, which is, this is the other point I want to make, is that this journey that we are on, yes, it's a business. Yes, you're self-employed, whatever you want to call it. It is it's spiritual. It's healing. You are undoing all the things. In human design, we're undoing the conditioning. You're helping your nervous system. And I thought I had Reiki and all this stuff behind me. And then when I started having to go, oh wait, this isn't the same. I went into applied because I already had all the tools. I didn't need to go into entree. It's a completely different ball of wax. If you go to riddle-design.com, you will see that there is no website there. For years, I don't even have a website up. I got the URL, but I don't have a website up. I still have more work than I do have time for my coaching business. To what you were saying, Maureen, last thing I want to do, because when I started freelancing, was I did work the 12, 14-hour days. When you wear all the hats, I have yet to find how you could do all the things and condense it down into an 8-hour day. I had no life there for a while until I started putting a lot of boundaries around it. And then now I'm like, I have these two things and I still want to bring it. I want to drop one and go into the other, or maybe it's an and. I do both, but I need to do both in such a way that I don't burn out. I don't want to spend 14 hours in front of my computer. I'm 55 now. It's a different story. I don't have the same stamina. After a while, I'm like, ew, my arm, click, 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 it hurts. So that's what I want to share, is that it is a journey. I don't think there's anything wrong with the 100K goal. I have a coach telling me, oh, just drop the 100K. Why are you going after the 100K? Oh, I like having a goal. That doesn't mean I'm attached to it. It's just now this is where I want to go, because then I know that I can drop, if I'm making enough money, I can drop one and lean into the other, or weave them in. I'm open to before I was very much an or, now I'm a weave it in, right? So wherever you are at, it's perfect, absolutely perfect. Don't buy into it has to be this way or you're a failure. And I had a hard time with the failure word. Like, you do learn so much. That should be a celebration.
Oh, for sure. And I love that you shared all that. And because I actually don't think the 100K goal itself is bad. I think it all depends on what you're thinking of it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that speaks to the model, right? And we all know, so it is what you think about it. And I honestly, like, I'm inspired to make money because I have now figured out what inspires me and how I want to do it. But it took me 3 years to figure that out. So now the thought of making money is exciting. It's not dreadful. I'm not like worried about sales and stuff. And it also brings up another point that I think is super important. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this call is collaboration over competition. That is for 100%, that is what I'm about. And if you ever pay attention to me posting in groups, it's all about who you're being. I never talk about business strategies or any of that stuff. And I pretty much, anytime I see someone who's suffering, that's what inspires me and keeps me going and figuring out what I want to do, is by helping other people. And it's also in my human design to nurture people and to guide and to be a mentor. So I love the idea of having a community where people can go, where they realize they're not alone and they're not the only one that's, you know, feeling a certain way or on a given day. And I think it's important to, like, I have all kinds of ideas, but I didn't bring you here to pitch you on anything. I just wanted to talk about this conversation, but the collaboration piece I think is really big, supporting one another and the spiritual aspect of it too. And that for sure isn't for everybody, but it is. But and it's interesting because you have people who are coaches who are spiritual, but I don't know, some of them don't feel spiritual when you're interacting with them. Like you can learn this stuff, but if you're not applying it to your day-to-day life and your interactions with other people, you can learn your entire lives. That doesn't mean you're practicing it. So you have to really be able to apply it. Oh, go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the idea of collaboration. And that's where I've found success. And that's where I've found growth. And that's where I found the ability to share ideas. And that's one thing, you know, our market is so, I think it is saturated with a lot of people who aren't creating something new and just retreading the old things. And I think collaborating and sharing these struggles and actually trying to figure out a solution and then share that is so powerful. And, you know, because of the fact that we have something to share. And I'm going to break the thing here. I've never had a $100,000 goal because that doesn't replace my salary. My goal was always 300 plus K. To consider myself to leave and go do full-time coaching, I got to be able to see a horizon of 300K. And I'm not going to get there on one-on-one coaching. I know this. I have to get creative and I have to look at things like speaking and books and podcasts and, you know, groups. How do I get large influx? Right. But when I'm doing that, I've got to develop a big idea and I've got to develop something that becomes electric. And I can't do that in a coaching group, right? Being coached, I got to work with other people. I got to start seeing what other people are doing and sharing those ideas. And that's why, you know, Maureen, I've had you on my podcast, vice versa. It's like, we've got to share our ideas because that's how we're going to separate and be the people that someone wants to come talk to. And when I shifted that, I just started having more conversations. Like, that's it. Having more conversations, networking, relationships. It's the fundamentals of any business.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I think you bring up a good point about the content and being original and finding what you offer. That's huge because I was just trying to do what other people did and talk like them and everything. I mean, looking back on it, I used to be a leader.
You will, right? Because you have to imitate before you create. That's part of the journey.
Maybe,
right?
But maybe we can save some people some time and get them creating and not imitating other people and trying to do things the way they do. But I do think that's the norm up until this point. But like nobody's really telling new coaches not to do that or telling them to rethink these goals. Like we're all just like kind of figuring it out as we go, but we're not taking the time to really get the message out to all the people that need to hear it so that they don't give up. And they don't become really resentful and bitter because they've spent all this money and nothing's happened because of it. And that's not just the coach's fault. That's the person who hired the coach from a place where they weren't prepared, right? I mean, I'm not an idiot. I know it's a painful lesson because it's happened to me too. But we have to take responsibility too for how we hire someone and the energy we do it with. And then, yeah, it's a tough lesson though. I've had some expensive lessons myself.
Lesson learned for sure. Lesson learned. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night. Tana, did you want to say anything before we go?
I've been listening and working on some other things, but I totally agree with what everyone has said here. And the one thing that I thought was so fascinating from all of you, and I feel the same way, is that we are told a lot of ways to market and sell our business, but each one of you in your own way has had the same experience I did. It's about sharing and building a connection with the person right next to you. That's where I think it happens naturally and authentically and becomes part of you. And so but we're taught that we can just build this machine that goes out there and, and supposedly does this magical work. And being a person who spent a year trying to sell weight loss coaching and doing all the things and it not working, the minute I switched the niche to what was more about connecting and helping people relate to their creator, that's when everything changed. And all my clients came from local places, people I knew, and building from there. And it never came from all this internet stuff. So for what it's worth.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really good point, because you don't have to be on social media to be a coach, even if you learned online. That's what I mean. We get to do it however we want to do it, whatever feels good to us in our body. We might want to stretch ourselves out of our comfort zone a little bit so that we can grow, but not to the point where it breaks us.
Yeah. And I don't, by the way, regret that I did all of those things and learned it. Like I learned a lot from that, but it also just showed me that, you know, there is a natural way that I think each of us does what we do in life. We're all given certain gifts and talents. And if we're living from those, then I believe these things flow a little bit better. You know, so that's kind of my 2 cents. I've really appreciated everything you all have shared today.
Well, thanks for being here. Do you play the guitar?
Yeah, I try. I try a little bit.
You and Pete could start a band. Maybe you could do some kind of business around that.
Oh yeah, no, I play more keyboards and stuff, but I've always been fascinated with learning guitar, so I kind of force myself a little bit here and there. So
well, thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have anything to say that they haven't said yet? Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a friend on Facebook who is not an LCS coach, but she is a coach. And she said one of her mantras that she adopted is, I get paid every day. And I thought about that. And for me, I mean, that can mean anything for anybody. But for me, this class is a way of getting paid. Like I didn't pay money to get here. Nobody paid me money to be here, but everybody's contribution added to me today. And I think thinking about it that way of what was contributed into my sphere every day that has increased who I am or increased me in some way. And I think if we are focused on like, how did I actually get paid? Where did somebody else contribute to my well-being today? Or whatever that it means for you, I feel like that can be a really powerful way of looking at this, that steps away from like how many dollars. It's getting paid is so much more than just dollars. And some days it will be being paid with dollars, but some days it'll be getting paid in so many other ways. And I think expanding that can be so useful, especially for newer coaches who are still figuring all of this out.
Yeah, you were just talking about universal laws there, right? And you know, we think that we need something and we pray for it and we think our prayers aren't being answered, but law of polarity is like over here saying, I'm answering your prayer, but it doesn't look the way you think it should. If you would just open up your eyes and like pay attention, I can actually help you. But we get this tunnel vision of how we think things should be. All right. Anybody? So it was really nice meeting all of you. It was fun. We should do this again sometime. I think I'm going to be, because people wanted a replay. I think I'm just going to go ahead and put it on the Brain BS podcast, if that's okay with all you guys. It will just be audio, no video, of course. Are you agree? Is that okay? I want to get permission first before I do that, but I think it could be cool and it would be easy for me to promote and stuff and just tell people to go to that podcast episode. Then it increases people going to my podcast episode and I reach more people. And then there's a whole thing that happens after that because all my coaching is about helping other people and my success is entwined with other people's. Every time I make money, somebody else is going to make money.
You know, I'll agree.
Yeah, you love being on the podcast. And if anyone wants to come on, Gretchen's been on the podcast, Susan's been on twice, but and Pete's been on twice or once. If you
and then I had you on mine.
Let me know if there's something you want to come on and talk about. I would love to have you, or if you just want to talk about this again.
Well, Maureen, you and I have been talking, we've been back and forth a few times about being on podcast together. I don't know if you
I
remember.
know. I have a wait list of like 75 people, but I'm going to bump you up because you made the call.
Sure.
All right. Because I get to do what I want. It's my business. All right, everyone. I was almost going to say, I know you learned something valuable here today. See you next episode. But I guess I should, right? All right.
Thanks, Maureen.
Thanks, Maureen. Thanks, everyone.
Oh my gosh, what a great group of people and such a fun conversation. And I just love putting some stuff out there that needs to be out there for all of us to reflect on and think about and try to start showing up as the best version of ourselves if we're not already doing that. Living consciously should not just be in our personal life, it should extend to our business life as well. So I'll say it one more time with confidence that I know you learned something valuable here today, and I'll see you next episode. Thanks for being here and learning about Brain BS. I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. If you did, please take a little time to do a quick review, give me 5 stars, and share it with everyone you know. If you're actually interested in being on the podcast yourself or have questions about it, you can find me in the Brain BS podcast community on Facebook. See you next time.